The pharmacy card reader made one flat little beep, and the woman behind the counter looked at me like I had handed her a bad check. I was holding my grandfather's wallet in both hands. His driver's license was still tucked behind the clear plastic. The picture from when he still drove himself to Kroger every Thursday morning and complained about how they moved the English muffins. His Medicare card was behind that. Then the debit card, blue and worn at the edges from years of being slid into gas pumps, bank machines, restaurant folders. The cashier lowered her voice. It declined again. Again. That word tightened my stomach because I had already swiped it once and inserted it when the machine told me to. I had already smiled too hard, like the problem was probably me. Can you try it one more time? She did. The little machine blinked, thought for 2 seconds, and refused my dying grandfather's pain medication over a $26 copay. My mother was 3 feet behind me, scrolling through her phone with her reading glasses low on her nose. She was wearing the cream cardigan she wore whenever she wanted strangers to see her as soft and exhausted. At hospice, people kept touching her arm and telling her she was an angel. "Anna," she murmured, not looking up. "Just use your card." I turned around. "Mom, this is Grandpa's prescription." "I know whose prescription it is. Please don't make everyone wait." There were 2 people behind us. One was a man buying cough drops. The other was a woman with a toddler chewing on a receipt. Nobody looked angry. But my mother had a special talent for making my normal questions feel like public misconduct. I pulled out my debit card. The cashier's face softened in a way that made everything worse. "I'm sorry. Sometimes banks flag charges." "It's fine." $26 should not have mattered to my grandfather. Thomas Hale was not rich in the flashy way, but he had been steady his whole life. He had worked 34 years as an electrical inspector for the city of Columbus, bought the same 2-bedroom brick house in Clintonville before houses there became impossible, and once mailed me $17 because I mentioned that my apartment laundry had gone up by a quarter. He did not miss payments. He did not overdraft. He did not let a $26 pharmacy charge fail while he was lying in a hospice bed with liver cancer eating through his last weeks. When we got back to the car, cold October rain had started needling the windshield. My mother slid into the passenger seat and immediately called my father. "Mark, your daughter is getting worked up about Dad's bank card." Your daughter. Not Anna. Not our daughter. That was what she called me when I became inconvenient. I stood outside the driver's door with the white pharmacy bag in my hand and listened through the glass. No, I told her it's probably a fraud hold, because that's what happens when someone is sick and there are unusual charges. Yes, I know. I got in and shut the door harder than I meant to. My mother covered the phone. "Your father says the bank froze it because of all the medical charges. He'll handle it. Grandpa has the same bank he's had since before I was born. They would call. Anna, your grandfather is dying. Do you really think this is the moment to audit everybody?" I looked at the pharmacy bag on my lap. The staple had gone through the patient information sheet crookedly. Morphine sulfate. Use as directed. May cause confusion. That warning would become important later. At the time, it was just another sentence I let my parents hide behind. I just don't understand why his card didn't work. My mother leaned her head back against the seat and closed her eyes. Because death is messy. Because caregiving is expensive. Because your father and I have been doing everything while you float in after work and notice one little thing. I worked payroll for a regional grocery chain. My whole job was noticing one little thing before it became a lawsuit or an employee's rent problem. A missing decimal, a reverse deduction, a bank file rejected because someone changed an account number and forgot to verify it. But I did not say that. I started the car. The hospice facility smelled like lemon wipes and reheated soup. Grandpa's room was at the end of the hall, past a bulletin board covered with paper leaves. His name was written on a small whiteboard beside the door, Thomas H. Beneath it, in my mother's handwriting, someone had added likes: black coffee, baseball, quiet. He had never liked quiet. He liked radio baseball, the dishwasher running, the front porch wind chimes, old men arguing at the barber shop. Quiet was what my mother liked when she wanted control. Grandpa was asleep when we walked in, his face turned toward the window. He had become so thin that the blanket made a mountain out of his knees. My father sat in the vinyl chair by the bed, laptop open, his jaw tight like he was doing taxes instead of waiting for someone to die. "Got it?" he asked. I held up the pharmacy bag. "Good. Leave the receipt with me." Something in his tone made me keep my fingers around the bag. "Why?" He looked up. "For reimbursement." "From who?" My mother made a small sound near the sink. Dad stared at me for a second too long. "From your grandfather's estate eventually, Anna. Don't be dramatic." Estate. He said it like Grandpa was already a folder. I took out the medication but slipped the receipt into the back pocket of my jeans. It was petty. It was childish. It was the first disobedient thing I had done all day, and my face went hot like everyone could see it. Grandpa woke while my mother was measuring the dose. His eyes moved around the room, cloudy but searching. When he found me, his mouth twitched. "Annie." He was the only person allowed to call me that. I went to the side of the bed. His hand was cool and dry, the skin loose over bone. I wrapped my fingers around his, careful not to disturb the IV tape. "I'm here." His eyes shifted toward my parents, then back to me. For a moment, the room seemed to draw itself smaller around us. "Blue cards," he whispered. My mother turned from the sink. "Dad, don't worry about all that now." Grandpa's fingers tightened with surprising force. "Still there?" I bent closer. "What blue cards?" His breath rattled. "Where I left them, not trash." Dad shut his laptop with a soft click. "He's been asking about random things all day. Yesterday he wanted to know if the porch light bill was paid." "It was," Grandpa whispered. Nobody laughed. My mother came over with the syringe and the gentle face she used for nurses. "Dad, this will help." Grandpa looked at me once more. There was fear in his eyes, but not the loose, floating fear I expected from a dying person. It was focused, almost embarrassed. "Don't let them," he breathed. Then my mother touched the syringe to the inside of his cheek, and the sentence dissolved before he could finish it. I stood there holding his hand while his grip loosened. My father reopened the laptop. My mother smoothed the blanket over Grandpa's chest, her face calm and wounded, like he had insulted her by being difficult. I told myself the medication made people confused. I told myself the card declined because banks were cautious. I told myself my parents were tired, and tired people sounded cruel when they were really just afraid. I was good at that, translating hurt into something kinder. On the drive back to my apartment, the pharmacy receipt scratched against my pocket every time I shifted. $26.40. Date, time, last 4 digits of my card. I put it in the small ceramic bowl by my front door when I got home. Keys, receipt, lip balm, loose quarters. It looked like nothing. That was the first thing my parents stole from him that I could prove I had paid for. By the next afternoon, my grandfather's house had stopped looking like his house. That sounds dramatic, but anyone who has watched a relative take control of a sick person's home knows what I mean. It happens in small moves easy to defend. A pile of mail disappears because it looks messy. The pill organizer moves to a tote bag nobody else can touch. A daughter tapes a sign to the refrigerator, and suddenly she is the gatekeeper, the nurse, the grieving child, and the bouncer. My mother had done all of that in less than a week. Grandpa's kitchen used to smell like Folgers and toast crumbs. He had a radio on the counter tuned to the local sports station, even when no game was on. By Saturday, the radio was unplugged. The counters smelled like bleach. The mail that normally sat beside the fruit bowl had been replaced by a wicker basket full of sympathy cards, each one opened and arranged so people could see how loved we were. My father stood at the sink rinsing a casserole dish. He was wearing old jeans and a sweatshirt from the accounting firm where he worked before consulting from home. Every few minutes, he sighed like the dish had personally betrayed him. "Hospice nurse says he might have a few good hours this evening," he told me. "Your mother wants you to stay for dinner in case he wakes up." I had come straight from work in black slacks and flats that pinched my heels. My laptop bag was still on my shoulder. I can stay. Good. She needs help. That was how my family asked for things. Not, can you help? Not, thank you for coming after work. Just a statement that made refusal sound like bad character. In the dining room, my mother was on the phone with someone from Grandpa's church. Her voice had gone soft and breathy. We're just taking it day by day, she murmured. Mark has been incredible. Anna comes when she can. I looked down at my flats. Anna comes when she can. I had been there 4 nights that week. I had used my lunch break to argue with the oxygen company. I had driven across town for medication his own card could not buy. Still, in my mother's sentence, I sounded like a niece from Denver who sent flowers. She saw me listening and turned toward the window. On the dining table sat a plastic storage tote with a gray lid. I recognized Grandpa's electric bill logo through the clear side, along with bank envelopes, medical invoices, and my father's yellow legal pad. I touched the lid. Is this Grandpa's mail? My mother's head snapped around. She covered the phone. Please don't dig through that. Your father has a system. I wasn't digging. Then don't start. The woman from church must have said something because my mother turned away again and softened instantly. No, we don't need anything except prayers. Maybe paper plates. Anna keeps forgetting those. I had never been asked to bring paper plates. Grandpa's house had a narrow linen closet outside the bathroom, the kind with shelves that smelled faintly of cedar chips and old towels. When I was little, he kept a cigar box on the top shelf filled with rubber bands, spare keys, old ticket stubs, and blue index cards. He wrote everything on blue index cards. The closet door was shut. A laundry basket full of sheets sat in front of it. I almost moved the basket. Then I heard my father behind me. Looking for something? I turned too fast. No, towels. His gaze moved from my face to the closet door. Bathroom has hand towels already. Right, I saw. I hated how guilty I sounded while doing nothing wrong. Dad leaned against the wall and rubbed both hands over his face. For the first time that day, he looked genuinely tired. Not performatively tired, not martyr tired, just a 60-year-old man whose father-in-law was dying in the next room. Anna, I know yesterday was upsetting, but your mom is carrying a lot. If she gets sharp, let it go. I am letting it go. You're not. You get that look. I knew the look he meant. It was my payroll look. At work, people respected it. At home, it made me difficult. Grandpa's card declining was weird. It was handled. By who? His jaw shifted. By me. From the bedroom came a low murmur, then my mother's voice telling Grandpa to relax. Dad glanced that way, impatient and worried at the same time. Your grandfather has a lot of automatic payments, he continued. Medical equipment, caregivers, old subscriptions he forgot to cancel. We created a central system so bills don't fall through the cracks. That's what responsible people do. Is that what the toad is? The toad is none of your concern right now. That should have stopped me. In our family, none of your concern was not a boundary. It was a verdict. It meant you were childish, selfish, ungrateful, too emotional, too late. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator because my hands needed a job. The shelves were packed with foil-covered dishes and labeled deli containers. In the door, behind a carton of orange juice, sat a small stack of unopened envelopes. I pulled them out. Anna. My father's voice hardened behind me. The top envelope was from a medical supply company. Final notice was printed in red across the front. My father took it from my hand before I could open it. That has already been addressed. Why is a final notice in the fridge? My mother appeared in the doorway. Because I put it there when the nurse arrived and forgot about it. Is that a crime now? I didn't call it a crime. You didn't have to. You have been walking around this house like we are all suspects. Her eyes shone, and shame moved through me automatically. It was so familiar it almost felt like love. My mother hurt. I became useful. My mother cried. I apologized. My mother implied I had failed. I tried to earn my way back. I'm sorry, I said. I just want to help. Then help, she snapped. Don't interrogate. Help. So I did. I folded towels, I labeled leftovers, I took out bathroom trash. I texted cousins with updates my mother dictated but signed with both our names. I wiped applesauce off Grandpa's nightstand while he slept. I let my father keep the final notice. Near 7, a home health aide named Denise came by to check Grandpa's skin and change the bed pads. She was a sturdy woman with silver beads at the ends of her braids and the kind of face that gave nothing away in front of family. When my parents stepped outside to talk with a neighbor, Denise found me at the sink washing mugs. "You Anna?" I nodded. She dried her hands on a paper towel. "Your grandfather likes you." The present tense made my throat tighten. "I like him too." She looked toward the front door. "Supply company called me twice this week. They said the account needs payment before they send more pads. I told your dad." The mug slipped in my hand and knocked against the sink. "More pads?" "And gloves. Barrier cream too." Her voice stayed low. Sometimes families think hospice covers every single thing. It doesn't. But usually somebody pays and gets reimbursed. The word reimbursement scraped over the place where my father had asked for the pharmacy receipt. "Do you know how much?" "Not huge. Few hundred maybe. But people get funny when the money starts moving." The front door opened. Denise picked up her bag and changed her face into professional calm. After she left, I went back to the refrigerator. The final notice was gone. In its place, half tucked under a magnet shaped like an Ohio State helmet, was a folded contractor estimate for custom cabinets, quartz counters, and recessed lighting. The address was my parents' house. The total at the bottom was $48,900. Across the top, in my father's handwriting, were 3 words: "Use Astor account." I did not sleep much that night. The words "use Astor account" kept rearranging themselves behind my eyelids. Astor was my grandmother's favorite flower. She had died when I was 16, and Grandpa planted purple asters along the side fence. My parents naming an account after that flower made my skin feel too tight. At 6 in the morning, I sat at my tiny kitchen table with coffee I had microwaved twice and opened my laptop. Payroll had taught me not to trust panic, so I made a spreadsheet. Date, vendor, amount, source, notes. The first line was the pharmacy receipt in the ceramic bowl, $26.40. It looked ridiculous sitting alone in a spreadsheet, one tiny charge trying to explain a feeling much larger than itself. I had no access to Grandpa's bank account. I had no legal right to demand statements. My father had been handling everything since Grandpa's diagnosis. That was the family line. Mark is good with money. Linda is good with people. Anna is good with details, as long as she uses those details for Mark and Linda. So I started with what I could see. The medical supply company's final notice had a customer service number printed on the envelope. I had memorized the company name before Dad took it. At 7:30, I called from my car outside work. "I'm helping with my grandfather's hospice supplies," I told the woman who answered. "I need to know what has to be paid so delivery can continue." She could not give me account details without authorization. I understood. I apologized. Then she paused. "I can tell you that the account is on hold until the responsible party contacts us." "Can you tell me if you have the responsible party's name?" "I can't verify account specifics." "Right. Sorry." I was about to hang up when she added carefully, "If this is time sensitive, the responsible party should call today. We have Astor Care Management listed for billing communication." The name sat there, small and official enough to make my hands cold on the steering wheel. At lunch, I searched Ohio business filings while eating yogurt at my desk. Astor Care Management LLC appeared in less than 10 seconds. Registered agent, Mark Ellison. Organizer, Linda Ellison. Business address, my parents' house. Formation date, 2 months after Grandpa's diagnosis. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. A coworker named Priya rolled her chair over with a granola bar in her hand. "You look like you found a ghost in Excel." I locked my phone. "Family stuff." "Bad family stuff or just family stuff?" I almost gave the automatic answer. "It's fine. We're all just tired. My grandfather is sick, so everyone is stressed." Instead, I pressed the heel of my hand against one eye. I think my parents made a company to bill my dying grandfather. Priya did not do the thing people do when they want pain to become less awkward for them. She just pulled her chair closer and lowered her voice. Do not confront them until you have copies of everything you can get. The sentence landed with such practical weight that I wanted to cry. I don't even know what everything is. Then start with dates. Dates are harder to gaslight. That afternoon, I made mistakes at work. I approved a batch late. I missed a garnishment email until my supervisor forwarded it with a question mark. My face burned through our staff meeting because I could feel myself becoming the thing my mother accused me of being. Distracted, dramatic, not where I was supposed to be. After work, I drove to Grandpa's house with a pack of paper plates on the passenger seat because shame has muscle memory. My mother opened the door before I knocked. Oh good, you remembered. The plate suddenly felt pathetic in my hand. Inside Sai, the house was full of voices. 2 cousins were in the living room. A neighbor stood by the mantel holding a mug. My father was telling a story about Grandpa once trying to fix a toaster with a butter knife. Grandpa was awake in the bedroom. His eyes found the paper plates, then me. Party? He whispered. I smiled even though my throat hurt. Apparently. My mother adjusted his blanket. People love you, Dad. Let them. He looked at her. Love pays bills. The room went still. My cousin Megan glanced at me, then down at her phone. My father stepped in from the hallway. Tom, everything is paid. We talked about this. Grandpa's mouth worked like the words were stuck behind his teeth. Not everything. My mother gave the room a strained smile. The medication makes him fixate. Yesterday it was the porch light. I watched Grandpa's hand move over the blanket, searching. His fingers tapped once, twice, 3 times against the sheet, like he was touching invisible cards. Blue cards. I should have asked him then. I should have moved the laundry basket, opened the linen closet, found the cigar box. Instead, I carried paper plates to the kitchen. My mother followed. You need to be careful with your face, she murmured while opening a drawer. People are already upset. My face? You look suspicious. I laughed once, too sharply. Maybe because things are suspicious. She shut the drawer. What things? There was my chance, Astor Care Management. The contractor estimate, the declined card, the final notice. Grandpa saying love pays bills. But her eyes were wet and I could see the tired daughter under the performance. My mother was selfish. My mother was controlling. My mother was also grieving. I hated that both could be true. Nothing, I said. I'm sorry. She touched my cheek with 2 fingers, almost tender. I know you want to be important right now, but your father and I have this handled. Want to be important. I went into the bathroom and locked the door. The hand towel had embroidered seashells on it, even though Ohio has no ocean. I sat on the closed toilet seat and searched the Franklin County Recorder site because Priya had said dates. 2 months after Astor Care Management was formed, my parents had taken out a home equity line of credit. 3 weeks after that, there was a lien release. Then a permit for kitchen renovation. None of that proved Grandpa's money had paid for anything. It only made a shape. But payroll people know shapes. Fraud is often boring before it is shocking. A new vendor, a familiar approver, round transfers, vague notes, people who get offended before they get clear. When I came out, my father was waiting in the hallway. Your mother says you're upset again. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're poking around business filings during a family crisis. My stomach dropped. My mother had looked at my phone, or guessed well enough. Astor Care Management is your company. His expression did not change. That was worse than denial. It's an LLC for caregiving expenses. Perfectly legitimate. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because not everything requires a committee. Grandpa knows? Dad's mouth tightened. Your grandfather signed what he needed to sign when he was competent. Now he is scared and confused, and your mother is barely holding herself together. So if you want to contribute, contribute. If you want to play detective, do it somewhere else. In the bedroom, Grandpa coughed, a wet, broken sound that made all of this feel indecent. I looked at my father, then at the laundry basket still blocking the linen closet. I chose peace again. I picked up the trash bag from the bathroom and tied it neatly. My hands were shaking so hard the plastic whispered. Before I left that night, Grandpa woke one more time. His eyes were clearer than before. "Annie," he breathed. I leaned close. "Don't sign," he whispered. "Sign what?" His eyes slid toward the hallway. My mother called my name from the kitchen, sweet and sharp. When I looked back, Grandpa's eyes were closed. I drove home with the paper plates still on the back seat because nobody had used them. At a red light, I opened my phone and looked at the Astor filing again. For the first time, I did not feel confused. I felt late. Grandpa died on a Thursday night while rain tapped against the hospice window like fingernails. But before that, I got 1 hour alone with him. My parents were at Grandpa's house meeting with the funeral home director. They told me to sit with him but not upset him, as if my presence had edges. I arrived with a paper cup of black coffee I knew he could not drink and set it on the windowsill because the smell seemed kinder than the room's lemon disinfectant. He was awake. Not fully, not steadily, but enough that his eyes followed me from the door to the chair. "Annie." "I'm here." The television was on mute. A weather map moved silently across the screen, green bands of rain sliding over central Ohio. Someone had placed a battery candle on the table beside his bed. It flickered against the plastic water cup, pretending it warmth. I took his hand. He felt colder than the day before. "Mom and Dad are handling funeral things," I told him, because I did not know what else to say. "They'll be back soon." His mouth pulled down slightly. "I know," I whispered. "I know." I did not know. I was still standing with one foot in the old story and one foot in the new one, trying to stretch myself across both without splitting. Grandpa swallowed. It took effort. "Closet." My body went still. "The linen closet?" His fingers moved against mine, tapping once, twice, 3 times. "Box." The cigar box. Rain ticked harder against the glass. In the hallway, a nurse laughed softly with someone at the desk, and the normalness of that sound made the room feel even more private. "I can look later," I told him. His eyes sharpened. For 1 second, he was not a sick man drifting between medications. He was the grandfather who taught me how to check my oil because he said adulthood was mostly knowing when a dashboard light meant stop pretending. "Now." I glanced at the door. "Grandpa, if they come back and I'm gone..." His hand tightened. "Annie." That was all. My name, with disappointment tucked inside it. I stood so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. The hospice facility had a small family lounge near the elevators with vending machines and a bulletin board full of grief support flyers. I walked there first, looked around like I was considering pretzels, then kept walking to the exit. My heart beat in my throat the entire drive to Grandpa's house. The house was dark except for the porch light. My father had finally paid that bill, or Grandpa had been right that it was never in danger. I used the spare key under the frog planter. My hands were damp, and the key slipped twice before the lock turned. Inside, the house smelled stale, as if all the casseroles and lilies and bleach had settled into the wallpaper. The laundry basket still blocked the linen closet. I moved it. The closet shelves were crowded with towels, old blankets, a heating pad, and Christmas tablecloths my grandmother used to iron before Thanksgiving. On the top shelf, shoved behind a plastic bin of light bulbs, was the cigar box. It was darker than I remembered, with a faded red paper band around the lid and a brass latch that had gone dull. I pulled it down and set it on the hallway floor. Locked. For a second, all my urgency emptied out into something stupid and practical. Of course it was locked. Of course Grandpa, who labeled freezer bags with dates and kept instruction manuals in alphabetical order, had not left the most important box open. Then I saw the blue index card taped to the underside. Anna. Not Annie. Anna. My name in his square handwriting, shakier than it used to be, but still his. A small key was taped beneath the card with yellowed masking tape. I sat on the floor like my knees had stopped being useful. The furnace kicked on. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed. I peeled the tape carefully, afraid of tearing the card, afraid of what happened when I did not. The key turned on the second try. Inside were blue index cards bundled with rubber bands. Some were old and soft at the corners. Some were new enough that the ink looked almost wet. Beneath them were photocopies of checks, bank statements, printed emails, a folded letter, and a small envelope with Marisol Grant, attorney at law, written across the front. The top index card said, "If I am dead or unable to explain, give this to Anna before Mark and Linda clean the house." I read it 3 times. Then I put the card down and covered my mouth with my hand because the sound that came out of me did not feel safe in that hallway. Another card listed dates. Astor formed. First transfer, second transfer. Linda cried about caregiver cost. Mark said tax strategy. Asked for full statement. Did not receive. Another. I agreed to reimburse actual expenses. I did not agree to pay for their house. Another. Do not let them say I was confused the whole time. I am confused sometimes. Not about this. The folded letter was addressed to me. Dear Anna, if you are reading this, I am probably gone, or close enough that people are using my condition to make me smaller than I was. I am sorry to put a burden in your hands. I chose you because you still get embarrassed when something is wrong, which means you have not trained yourself to enjoy it. I did not read the rest then. I could not. My phone buzzed on the floor beside my knee. Mom. I let it ring. It buzzed again. Then a text appeared. Where are you? He woke up asking for you. I looked at the open cigar box, the blue cards spread like pieces of a life he had been trying to keep from being rewritten. I should have taken photos of everything. I should have called the attorney that minute. Instead, I shoved the cards back into the box, locked it, tucked it under my coat, and drove back to hospice with it on the passenger seat like a stolen animal. When I reached his room, my parents were there. My mother stood beside the bed with her arms crossed. My father was at the window, talking quietly into his phone. Grandpa's eyes were open, unfocused but searching. Where were you? My mother hissed. I needed air. She looked at my coat. The cigar box was underneath it, pressed against my ribs. I could feel one corner digging into me. You just left him? The accusation hit exactly where she meant it to. I had left. For him, but still, my face went hot. Linda, Grandpa whispered. My mother turned instantly. I'm here, Dad. His eyes moved past her to me. Got it? I nodded once. My father's phone call ended. Grandpa's mouth relaxed. It was not a smile. He did not have enough strength left for that. But something in him unclenched. My mother looked between us. Got what? Nobody answered. Grandpa died 43 minutes later. It was quieter than I expected. A breath, then a pause that stretched too long, then my mother saying his name in a voice I had never heard from her before. My father pressed the call button. I stood at the foot of the bed with the cigar box under my coat and felt grief move through me sideways, blocked by fear, by proof, by the terrible knowledge that even in that room, with his body still warm, my parents were already part of the thing he needed protection from. After the nurse came, after the official words, after my mother folded herself over Grandpa's chest and sobbed into the blanket, my father put his hand on my shoulder. We'll all need to pull together now, he said. His palm was heavy, familiar. I stepped out from under it. He noticed. For 2 days after Grandpa died, my parents moved like people who had been waiting for permission. The funeral home appointment became theirs. The obituary became theirs. The guest list, the flowers, the photo board. My mother created a shared note called Celebration of Thomas and invited me to it at midnight, then removed my editing access when I changed beloved father figure to beloved grandfather. You made it sound like we were excluding people, she told me over the phone. I was sitting on my apartment floor with the cigar box in front of me. The blue cards were arranged in date order across my rug because I had spent 6 hours making myself read every one. I changed 2 words. Tone matters, Anna. Behind her, my father said something I could not make out. Your dad wants to know if you have Grandpa's spare keys, she added. We need to secure the house. My eyes went to the cigar box. I have the frog planter key. Bring it tomorrow. Not please. Not when you can. Bring it tomorrow. I need to work. Then come after work. And don't be strange, people notice. After she hung up, I sat very still. Don't be strange. I had spent my adult life trying not to be strange for them. Not too emotional at birthdays. Not too questioning at holidays. Not too hurt when they forgot my lease renewal, but remembered my cousin's dog surgery. I had become a woman praised for being low maintenance by people who maintained nothing in her. The blue cards made that impossible to romanticize. Grandpa had documented everything in his stubborn, practical way. Not perfectly. Not like a lawyer. Like a frightened old man trying to leave a trail before illness stole his ability to explain it. There were cards with dates and short notes. Linda says caregiving account easier. Asked why not use my existing checking. She cried. Mark brought papers, said standard. Too tired to read all. Need Marisol. Bank called about large wire. Mark answered my phone. Asked her transfer today. $125,000 for management. What management? There were copies of checks made to Astor Care Management LLC. Printed bank activity pages with certain lines circled in blue pen. A contractor invoice for my parents' kitchen with a sticky note attached. Paid from Astor 2 days after transfer. There was also the letter to me. Dear Anna, if you are reading this, I am probably gone, or close enough that people are using my condition to make me smaller than I was. I am sorry to put a burden in your hands. I chose you because you still get embarrassed when something is wrong, which means you have not trained yourself to enjoy it. I let your mother and father help me because I was scared. I do not want you to hate them for every part of this. People can do kind things and still steal. That is what makes it hard to see. Call Marisol Grant before you give anyone the box. She has copies of some things, not all. I was waiting until after the last bank statement arrived because I wanted the number right. The number I can prove is $765,000. If they tell you I wanted them to have it, ask them why they hid it. I had expected anger to come first. Instead, I felt embarrassed. Embarrassed that Grandpa had seen my parents clearly while I kept translating. Embarrassed that he had been dying and still protecting evidence while I was apologizing for opening envelopes. The next morning, I called Marisol Grant's office from the stairwell outside my apartment because my kitchen felt too small for the conversation. Her assistant went quiet when I gave my name. Ms. Hale, Ms. Grant has been expecting your call. The appointment was at 4 that afternoon in a low brick office building near Worthington, the kind with trimmed hedges and a lobby that smelled like stale coffee. I left work early and lied to my supervisor about a dental emergency. In the elevator, I tried to make my face look like someone who knew what she was doing. Marisol Grant was in her 50s, with cropped gray hair and a navy dress that made her seem calm without trying. She offered water, gave condolences, and waited while I placed the cigar box on her conference table. "He got it to you," she said. I nodded. "You knew about it?" "I knew there was a box. Thomas would not tell me where he kept it because he did not trust your parents to leave his house untouched." The room tilted a little. Marisol opened a folder. "Before we go further, I need to confirm something. Has anyone asked you to sign a statement about your grandfather's mental state?" My mouth went dry. "He told me not to sign." "Good. Has anyone presented one?" "Not yet." "They may." She slid a document across the table. Durable power of attorney revocation. The date was 6 weeks before Grandpa died. Thomas revoked the broad authority he had given your father after he discovered transfers he did not understand. He signed a narrower document naming a professional fiduciary for certain decisions, but implementation was complicated because your father still controlled access to records and, frankly, to Thomas. Could Grandpa do that if he was on morphine? On the day he signed? Yes. I had 2 witnesses and a capacity letter from his physician. Your grandfather was ill. He was not incompetent every minute of the day. That distinction matters. Families often blur it when convenient. Marisol pulled out a transaction summary. The sheet was clean, almost boring. Dates, amounts, source account, destination, memo lines. The first transfer to Astor Care Management was $40,000, then $75,000, then $125,000. then repeated transfers with descriptions like care coordination, property safety reimbursement, and advanced family caregiving. The total at the bottom was $765,000. Seeing the number in Grandpa's letter had hurt. Seeing it in a spreadsheet made it breathe. He had that much? Between investment accounts, savings, and proceeds from selling a small rental property years ago? Yes. He was careful. He also intended a portion to support his sister Elaine's long-term care. Elaine was Grandpa's younger sister. She had lived in a supervised apartment program since a brain injury in her 30s. I sent her Christmas cards because Grandpa put her address in mine every year. Your grandfather created a modest supplemental care trust for her. Your parents knew that. Several transfers came from the same pool of assets meant to fund it. A sound left me before I could stop it. Marisol did not soften the paper by apologizing for it. What was his final gift? I asked. The phrase sounded childish, like I had come hoping for an envelope with my name on it. Marisol folded her hands. Responsibility and protection, if you choose to accept it. Thomas amended his trust to name you successor trustee over the remaining assets and any recovery claim related to misappropriated funds. He also left instructions authorizing us to notify Adult Protective Services, the probate court if necessary, and financial institutions. He left me a lawsuit. He left you the authority to tell the truth with documents behind you. There is a difference. I looked at the cigar box. The brass latch was scratched where my thumbnail had worried it open and shut. If I do this, what happens to my parents? Accounts may be frozen. Civil recovery can begin. Depending on findings, there could be criminal referral. They will likely blame you. Likely. Such a clean word for the end of holidays, emergency contacts, and the fantasy that if I was useful enough, my mother would become gentle in the way I needed. Marisol slid Grandpa's letter back toward me. Anna, if you decide not to do this, I will not be here to be disappointed. That may make it easier. But Elaine will still need care, and you will still know. Do not confuse peace with silence. Silence is sometimes just the receipt someone else gets to keep. My vision blurred. The pharmacy receipt. The final notice. The contractor estimate. The blue cards. All these little scraps of paper saying the same thing. What do you need from me? Marisol's expression stayed steady. First, do not give your parents the box. Second, do not sign anything they put in front of you. Third, decide whether you are willing to be trustee. You can decline. For 1 weak second, I wanted to. I wanted someone older to take it. Someone harder. Someone who had not spent the morning wondering whether to bring my mother's favorite cookies to the funeral planning meeting. Then I pictured Grandpa's hand tapping the sheet. Once, twice, 3 times. Blue cards. I'll do it, I said. My voice shook, but the sentence stayed standing. My parents came to my apartment the night before Grandpa's funeral with a foil pan of lasagna and a lie in a manila envelope. I knew they were coming because my mother texted 12 minutes before they pulled into the parking lot. We are bringing dinner. Please answer the door. Not, can we come by? Not, are you home? Please answer the door, like I had already done something rude by needing warning. I had the cigar box in my bedroom closet under a stack of sweaters. Marisol had scanned everything that afternoon, but the physical box still felt alive. I kept thinking I heard the brass latch when the heat clicked on. When I opened the door, my mother lifted the lasagna slightly, an offering and an accusation. You haven't been eating, she said. I had been eating dry cereal over the sink and whatever Priya left on my desk with sticky notes that said protein. Thanks. My father stepped in behind her without waiting to be invited. He looked around my apartment, noticing the cheap bookshelf, the secondhand couch, the plant I had almost killed and then revived. My parents called it cozy, in a tone that made cozy sound like a diagnosis. Mom set the lasagna on my counter and started opening drawers. Plates? I can get them. Sit. You look awful. The old part of me wanted to obey because awful in my mother's mouth almost sounded like loved. I stayed standing. Dad placed the manila envelope on my kitchen table. We need to handle something before tomorrow. My stomach sank so fast I had to grip the counter. "What is it?" "A family matter." Mom took 3 plates from the cabinet and set them down too hard. "Your grandfather's attorney has been stirring up confusion. Mark thinks we should get ahead of it before people start saying things." "What people?" Dad gave that tired little laugh he used when I disappointed him by requiring nouns. "Don't be naive. Estate situations bring out the worst in everyone." He opened the envelope and pulled out 2 typed pages. I recognized the shape of it before I read a word. Statement. Signature line. Notary block. My ears began to ring. "This just clarifies that your grandfather was experiencing confusion and agitation near the end," Dad explained. "Which is true. Hospice records will show it." I did not touch the paper. Mom came to the table and put a hand on the back of a chair. "He accused me of hiding his socks, Anna. He thought the porch light bill wasn't paid. He asked for your grandmother twice like she was in the kitchen. You saw him. He also knew things." "In pieces," she snapped. Then softer. "Honey, dying people can be convincing in pieces. That doesn't make it fair to destroy the living." Destroy the living. Compassion, sharpened into a weapon. I picked up the statement. The language was smooth and careful. Thomas Hale displayed significant cognitive decline. Thomas Hale expressed unfounded suspicions regarding financial matters. Thomas Hale verbally confirmed his gratitude for care provided by Mark and Linda Ellison. Thomas Hale understood and approved reimbursements related to caregiving and family support. Family support. My father had always liked phrases broad enough to park a truck in. Who wrote this? An attorney friend reviewed it. Marisol? His face closed. Marisol Grant is creating billable conflict. Grandpa trusted her. Mom cut in before he could answer. Grandpa was vulnerable. And you are vulnerable right now, too. That woman put ideas in your head at the worst possible time. I laid the paper back on the table. My fingers left tiny damp marks near the signature line. I'm not signing this. My mother stared as if I had slapped her. Dad kept his voice calm. Nobody is asking you to lie. This says he approved everything. He did approve reimbursements. For $765,000? The number changed the room. Mom's hand moved to her throat. Dad did not blink. Outside, a car door slammed, and all 3 of us flinched. Where did you get that? He asked. Not, what are you talking about? Not, that's ridiculous. Where did you get that? I felt something inside me go quiet. Grandpa? My mother backed away from the table. He gave you something. I did not answer. Dad exhaled through his nose. Anna, listen carefully. That money did not vanish. It went toward care, time, lost income, modifications, coordination, cleaning out decades of his stubborn mess. Do you know what it is like to manage a dying man's life while your only child judges you from a 1-bedroom apartment? A kitchen renovation isn't hospice care. Mom's face twisted. We used part of the account to make our house safer because we were going to bring him home. That was new. You were going to bring him to your house? We considered it. With quartz counters? Don't be ugly, she said. I almost apologized. The word sorry rose in me like reflux. Then I saw Grandpa's note in my mind. People can do kind things and still steal. Dad sat down without being invited. Your grandfather promised Linda he would help us. He knew we had sacrificed. Your mother drove him to appointments, cleaned him, sat with him while he hallucinated. I spent nights fixing accounts he had neglected for years. We did not steal. We were compensated. Then why hide Aster? Because you react like this. That answer was so practiced, it must have been waiting for me. Mom pulled out the chair across from me and sat, suddenly smaller. Anna, I know you think I'm this selfish person who performs for everyone. Maybe sometimes I do. But I was there. I was there when he vomited. I was there when he cried because he couldn't button his shirt. I was there when you went home to your quiet apartment. Her voice broke on quiet apartment. It worked. For a second, I saw her in Grandpa's bathroom at 3 a.m, holding a towel, scared and resentful and alone. My anger loosened just enough for grief to get in. "I know you did hard things." She reached for my hand. "Then don't punish us for surviving them." Her fingers were warm. I looked down at them, at the manicure she had gotten 2 days before Grandpa died. I wanted my mother to be right. I wanted the money to be complicated instead of stolen. I wanted tomorrow to be a funeral where we cried as a family, not a performance where every hug had evidence under it. Dad slid the statement closer. "Sign it tonight. We'll get it notarized after the service. Nobody needs to know about any of this. Elaine needs care." Mom's hand left mine. Dad's jaw tightened. "Elaine is not your responsibility. She was Grandpa's. Grandpa is gone." The sentence hit the kitchen wall and dropped. That was when my mother stopped looking wounded and started looking angry. "So what?" she said quietly. "You're going to turn us in? Your own parents, over money he wasn't going to live to use?" Over money he wasn't going to live to use. There were phrases that could not be walked back. I picked up the statement, folded it once, and put it back in the envelope. For one terrible second, both of them looked relieved. Then I opened my silverware drawer, took out a pair of kitchen scissors, and cut the signature page in half. My mother's mouth opened. I cut it again. Dad stood. "Anna." My hands were shaking so badly the last cut went crooked. "Leave. You are making an emotional mistake." "Probably. But not a legal one." Mom began to cry, real tears this time, ugly and shocked. "I don't know who you are right now." That hurt more than I wanted it to. The answer was not brave or satisfying. I did not know either. I only knew I was someone who had finally stopped making my confusion available for their use. After they left, the lasagna sat untouched on the counter, cooling in its foil pan. Red sauce had leaked over one corner and dried there. I locked the door. Then I took a photo of the torn statement, sent it to Marisol, and forwarded Grandpa's scanned documents to the investigator whose email she had given me. My thumb hovered over the screen before I hit send. Once I did, there was no way to become the easy daughter again. The message disappeared into the little blue progress bar. Then it was gone. The funeral was full of people telling my parents they had done everything right. I stood beside the photo board in a black dress that still had the tag tucked into the back seam because I had bought it at Target on my lunch break. Grandpa's baseball cap sat on a small table near the guest book. My mother had arranged white roses around it, even though Grandpa hated roses. He said they were flowers that expected compliments. People hugged me and told me he was proud of me. Then they hugged my mother longer. "You were such a devoted daughter." Caregiving is the hardest job there is. Every sentence had truth in it. My mother had washed sheets and scheduled nurses and cried beside his bed. My father had carried boxes and made calls and sat through long hospice silences. They had done hard things. They had also stolen from him. After the service, my mother tried to hand me a stack of thank you cards. "You can start these tonight," she said, like nothing had happened in my kitchen. I looked at the cards. Cream envelopes, her return address labels, a pen clipped neatly to the top. "No." The word came out small but clear. Her face did not move. "Excuse me?" "I can't do those." A cousin was close enough to hear, so my mother smiled with her mouth only. "We'll talk later." We did not talk later. 3 weeks passed before the conference room meeting. In those weeks, everything got uglier in ordinary ways. My parents stopped calling but texted logistical demands. Relatives sent careful messages asking whether I was okay, then followed with paragraphs about not adding stress to my mother. Someone told Anna Lane's program coordinator that funding might change because Grandpa had mismanaged his assets, and Marisol had to correct it before Elaine lost a transportation supplement. That was the day I stopped muting my parents' texts and started forwarding every message to Marisol. The meeting was held on a Tuesday morning in Marisol's office. Rain streaked the windows, and the conference table had a small nick near my chair. Marisol sat beside me with a folder and a yellow legal pad. Across from us were my parents and their attorney, a man named Paul Danner, who looked like golf course manners and expensive hair gel. An adult protective services investigator named Ms. Robles sat at the end of the table with a laptop open. She had a calm face and did not waste movements. My mother wore navy and pearls. My father wore a gray suit. I wore the same black dress from the funeral because I had not had the energy to buy another outfit. Paul started with the voice people use when they want theft to sound like a misunderstanding. This appears to be a painful disagreement about informal caregiving compensation during a terminal illness. Marisol slid a packet across the table. It is a documented misappropriation claim involving $765,000 transferred through an LLC created by Mark and Linda Ellison, while Thomas Hale was medically vulnerable. My mother flinched at medically vulnerable, as if the words were vulgar. Paul glanced at the packet. We dispute both the characterization and the amount. Then we can start with the bank records. The next 40 minutes were not dramatic. I had imagined raised voices, maybe my mother crying, maybe my father finally losing the calm accountant tone that made every argument feel like a performance review. Instead, it was paper. Transfer authorization requests, business registration dates, contractor invoices, deposits into Astor, payments out of Astor to vendors that had nothing to do with hospice or home care, landscaping, credit card payments, a bathroom remodel. The kitchen estimate I had found became one page in a stack. Ms. Robles asked careful questions. What care services did Astor Care Management provide on October 12th for the $35,000 transfer? My father adjusted his cuffs. Coordination, oversight, emergency availability. Who performed those services? Linda and I did. Do you have logs? We were family. We did not clock in and out. My mother leaned forward. Do you ask every daughter to keep a time card while her father is dying? Ms. Robles did not react. I ask when a family caregiving company bills a vulnerable adult's account. The word bills did what emotional accusation could not. It made my parents look briefly, nakedly small. Then my father recovered. Thomas wanted to help us. He knew we had deferred repairs. He knew Linda had given up work opportunities. He offered. Marisol opened the cigar box. The brass latch clicked, and I felt it in my teeth. She took out one blue index card in a clear sleeve. Thomas wrote this after the first six-figure transfer. Anna, would you like me to read it? My parents looked at me for the first time since we had sat down. I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect the room from his handwriting, which meant I wanted to protect them, which meant I was still not done unlearning myself. I nodded. Marisol read evenly. I agreed to reimburse actual expenses. I did not agree to pay for their house. If they say I did, ask why Linda told me not to mention Astor to Anna because Anna worries about money. My mother's lips parted. Dad stared at the table. Marisol read the next card. Do not let them say I was confused the whole time. I am confused sometimes. Not about this. Silence pressed down. Paul cleared his throat. Handwritten notes by a terminally ill man are emotionally compelling, but not dispositive. No, Marisol agreed. That is why we also have bank alerts, physician capacity documentation, the power of attorney revocation, vendor records, and the attempted statement they brought Anna to sign after Thomas died. My father's eyes cut to me. The family look crossed the table. You made this public. You forgot your place. You could still fix it if you cared enough. For once, I let him look. Ms. Robles turned her laptop slightly. Based on the records provided, financial institutions have been notified. Certain accounts associated with Astor Care Management and related transfers are under review and may be restricted pending further action. My mother's voice came out thin. You froze our accounts? Marisol did not look away. Thomas's trust authorized recovery efforts. Anna, as successor trustee, signed the notices. Now my mother looked at me, not wounded, not confused, furious. You did this to us? I felt the old answer rise. I didn't mean to. I had no choice. I'm sorry. I put both hands flat on the table so they could not become fists. Grandpa did this for himself. I stopped hiding it. Dad's laugh was quiet and ugly. You think this makes you noble? No. That was the truest answer in the room. I did not feel noble. I felt sick, underdressed, and 29 years old in a room where paper hurt people. But I was not confused. I think taking money from a dying man and calling it caregiving is theft. My mother stood so quickly her chair hit the wall. After everything I did for him. You did things for him, I answered. You also took from him. Both are true. For a second, I thought she might slap me. Her hand lifted, not high, just enough that everyone saw the impulse. Then she grabbed her purse instead. Dad gathered his papers with precise, furious movements. At the door, he turned back. When this destroys your mother, remember you chose strangers over family. I looked at the cigar box on the table, the blue cards inside it, Grandpa's final stubborn order preserved in ink. No, I chose the family member who left proof. They left without looking at me again. Afterward, Marisol explained next steps. Civil demand, probate filings, possible referral, liens, timelines, words with consequences attached but no comfort. I nodded when I was supposed to. Signed where she pointed. Initialed beside one paragraph that made my parents' renovation loan part of the recovery claim. Then I reached into my purse and took out the frog planter key to Grandpa's house. Can you mail this to whoever is supposed to have it now? Marisol's face softened for the first time all morning. Are you sure? I placed it beside the cigar box. The key looked tiny on the conference table. Ordinary brass, worn teeth, a little dirt still caught in the grooves from years under the planter. If I keep it, I said, I'll keep thinking there's a door I can still use. Marisol nodded once and put it in an envelope. That was the first thing I gave back that did not feel like surrender. The first thing people imagine about a financial investigation is a dramatic ending. A courtroom, a judge, someone crying under fluorescent lights while truth finally becomes impossible. Ours was mostly email. For months, the case moved through attachments, corrected forms, status calls, and sentences that began with unfortunately. Unfortunately, some funds had already been spent. Unfortunately, recovery would take time. Unfortunately, civil action did not make grief cleaner. Unfortunately, people you love can owe money they cannot easily return. My parents' accounts did not stay frozen forever, but enough was restricted to stop the renovation and force disclosure. A lien was placed against their house. A settlement process began after their attorney realized Grandpa's notes were not the only evidence. There were bank alerts, vendor payments, the revoked power of attorney, the statement they had tried to make me sign, and my father's own messages about using the Astor account. The final number recovered was not $765,000. Neat endings are another kind of lie. Some money came back through the restricted accounts. Some came back through a repayment agreement secured against the house. Some was gone into contractors, debt, and the expensive machinery of pretending. Elaine's care trust was stabilized first, because Marisol insisted and because Grandpa's instructions were clear enough that even people who disliked me had trouble arguing with them. My parents were not dragged away in handcuffs. There was a referral and there were consequences I was not allowed to know every detail of. Their lives became smaller and more expensive. Their kitchen sat half-finished through Christmas, cabinet doors missing, plastic sheeting taped over one wall. I know because my cousin sent me a picture with the message, "This is what you wanted?" I stared at that picture for a long time. The old me wanted to answer carefully. I wanted to explain that I had not wanted any of it. Not Grandpa dying, not the theft, not my mother using grief like a shield, not my father turning caregiving into invoices, not a half-built kitchen becoming a family symbol everyone could blame on me because blaming theft would require more courage. Instead, I deleted the message. That became one of my new skills. Not every accusation needed my labor. Thanksgiving was the first holiday I did not spend with my parents. My mother sent one text at 8 in the morning. Your grandfather would be heartbroken by what you've done to this family. I read it while standing in the grocery store holding a bag of cranberries I did not need. For a few seconds, I was 9 years old again, waiting to be told how to fix the room. Then I put the cranberries back because I hated cranberry sauce and had only picked them up out of panic. Priya came over at 5 with store-bought rolls and a bottle of cheap red wine. Denise, Grandpa's former home health aide, stopped by after her shift because I had invited her awkwardly and she had accepted like it was normal. We ate roast chicken instead of turkey because my oven was small. The potatoes were too salty. Priya made a salad with pears and kept calling it seasonal like that made it less sad. It was not the Thanksgiving I would have chosen before all this. It was the first one where nobody handed me a task to prove I belonged. After dinner, I took out the one blue index card Marisol had let me keep. It was not evidence needed for the file, just one of Grandpa's ordinary cards from years before. Anna lease ends June. Ask if rent went up. Bring quarters. That was love as he understood it. Specific, unshowy, a little bossy. A note to remember what mattered to someone else. I put the card in a small frame by my apartment door. Not because I needed visitors to see it. Most people would not understand it anyway. But every morning, before work, I saw his handwriting beside my keys. For a while, I still reached for my phone when something good happened. A raise. A clean bill of health after a scare. Elaine sending me a birthday card with 3 stickers on it. My thumb would move toward my mother's name before the rest of me remembered. Missing someone is not proof they were safe. That was the hardest adult thing I learned. Harder than legal forms. Harder than sitting across from my parents in that conference room. Harder than being called ungrateful by relatives who had never paid a hospice copay with their own card while a dying man asked about blue cards. I did not become fearless. I still over-explain at work sometimes. I still apologize when someone bumps into me at the grocery store. I still hear my mother's voice when a room gets tense and my first instinct is to become useful. But I catch it now. I ask myself whether peace is being offered or purchased with my silence. On the first anniversary of Grandpa's death, I drove to Clintonville and parked near his old street. The house had been sold as part of the recovery agreement. The new owners had painted the front door green and pulled out the dead shrubs along the porch. For a minute, I hated them for making it look cheerful. Then I saw purple asters along the side fence. I do not know if they planted them or if Grandpa's roots had simply refused to leave. I sat in my car until the streetlights came on. No one came out. No one asked me to explain why I was there. The house was just a house again, which hurt and helped at the same time. Before I drove away, I took the pharmacy receipt from my wallet. I had kept it folded behind my license until the ink was almost gone. $26.40, the first proof, the smallest theft. The moment I began, even accidentally, to stop helping them bury him. I did not throw it away. Not yet. I drove home, unlocked my apartment, and put the receipt behind the framed blue card by the door. Then I plugged my phone in across the room where I could hear it if I needed to, but not reach it out of habit. For the rest of that night, it stayed quiet.